What is up, Jam Fam? It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the world's first and potentially only
mini jam.
This will be a mini jam because it will be shorter than most other jams, but also because the thing that we're talking about today is in and of itself a very small thing. But before I reveal what that is, let's roll the mini intro. In Matthew chapter 5, during his famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus told the people listening, "Don't misunderstand why I have come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets. No, I came to accomplish their purpose." And verse 18 says, "I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not even the smallest detail of God's law will disappear until its purpose is achieved." We are going to focus on the part where he says that not the smallest detail of God's law will disappear. Some versions of the Bible say that not one jot or tittle of God's law will pass away. And the Greek interlinear New Testament says, "Iota, one or one stroke of a letter, no not shall pass away from the law until everything should happen." An interlinear translation is one where the words are translated directly from the original text in the same order that they were written in the original text. And the way that they speak Greek is not the way that we write things in English, so the syntax, the order of the words can get really confusing and weird. So if that sounded weird, that's why. But it can also be super fun and helpful to read in interlinear translations. So if you've never done that, I recommend that you do. There are tons on the internet. Go check it out. The point is that the Greek New Testament records Jesus as saying that not one iota or one stroke of a letter will disappear from God's law until its purpose is accomplished. An iota is a letter in the Greek alphabet that is our letter I. In the Hebrew alphabet, the Greek letter iota corresponds to a tiny little letter called the yud. So in Aramaic Hebrew, which is the language that Jesus would have been speaking at the time, he would have said that not one yud will pass away from God's law until its purpose is accomplished, which is how it's translated in the complete Jewish Bible. Go check it out. The yud is the 10th letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it's also
the smallest letter.
So Jesus is literally saying that not the tiniest little mark in God's law will go away until God's purpose for writing it is fulfilled, which Jesus did by living the perfect life that no other human being on the planet had ever lived. It's fascinating. Mini dance break. The other interesting thing about the Yud is that this letter begins some of the most important words in all of Judeo-Christian theology. For instance, the first letter in the divine holy name of God, Yahweh, is the Yud. God's chosen chunk of land called Israel, or Yisrael in Hebrew, begins with the letter Yud. God's holy city, Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim in Hebrew, begins with, you guessed it, the Yud. And the name Jesus in Hebrew is the word Yeshua, which means the Lord saves. Can you guess what Hebrew letter the word Yeshua starts with? That's right. So we see that some of the most important words in the Bible begin with the tiniest letter in the alphabet. Because in God's universe, big things start as small things. Human life begins as a tiny microscopic speck. Gigantic trees begin as tiny seeds. So if you're hungry to do something big for Yahweh's kingdom, remember that big things start with small things. If you want to start reading your Bible, don't start by reading the whole book of Genesis in one day. Just read Genesis 1. If you want to become a person of prayer, don't try to fast and pray for 6 hours one day. Dedicate 5 minutes to prayer. If you want to share the good news of Yeshua with people, don't try to convert everyone you know in one day. Go start a conversation with one person. Trying to do big things all at once can lead to disappointment and frustration. Trust me, I try to do it all the time and it never works out. So take a little first step, and then another, and then another, and then another. And by the grace of God, little things can become big things. Just remember the Yud.